My wife Lisa looked me dead in the eye across our granite kitchen counter and delivered what she probably thought was a reasonable request. Michael, my best friend, is joining us for Christmas dinner. Be mature about it. I nodded slowly, setting down my coffee mug with deliberate care. Of course. What she didn't know was that I had already decided her best friend Alex wouldn't be coming alone. The dinner table was about to turn into a scene nobody in my family would ever forget. Let me back up a bit. My name is Michael Patterson, and I'm a 39-year-old high school history teacher in suburban Connecticut. I've been married to Lisa for 6 years, and for most of that time, I've watched her maintain what she calls a close friendship with Alex Morrison, her ex-boyfriend from college. They text constantly, and I mean constantly. Her phone buzzes with his messages during dinner, during movies, sometimes even during our conversations. She has weekly coffee dates with him, lunch meetings that run long, and an emotional intimacy that makes my skin crawl. Every time I've brought up my discomfort, Lisa's response is always the same. He's just a friend, Michael. You're being insecure. Just a friend. Right. If Alex is just a friend, then I'm Santa Claus, and my beard is in the shop for repairs. The thing about Alex Morrison is that he's everything I'm not. Where I'm a public school teacher making $52,000 a year, he's a tech entrepreneur who sold his startup for 8 figures. Where I drive a 7-year-old Honda Civic, he cruises around in a Tesla Model S. Where I shop at Target, he probably has his groceries hand-delivered by someone wearing white gloves. But here's what Alex doesn't have, that I do. Lisa. Officially, anyway. Though some days I wonder if that distinction means anything at all. Lisa works in advertising at a boutique firm downtown, and she's good at what she does. She's also beautiful, sharp-witted, and has a way of making people feel like they're the most important person in the room when she wants something from them. I fell for that charm 6 years ago, and most days I'm still falling, but not today. Today, something shifted. It was December 20th, 5 days before Christmas, when she made her announcement about Alex joining us. The way she said it, not asking, but telling, with that firm voice she uses when she's made up her mind about something. Like I was a child who might throw a tantrum if not properly managed. Is Alex coming alone? I asked, keeping my voice casual as I reached for the morning paper. Yes, why would that be a problem? I remembered something then. About 3 months ago, Lisa had mentioned that Alex was engaged to some woman named Sophie. She'd been oddly quiet about it, mentioning it only in passing, and I'd filed it away as interesting information. No problem at all, I said, and I was surprised by how genuinely relieved I sounded. The more the merrier. Lisa blinked, clearly expecting more resistance. Really? Yeah, absolutely. I'm just glad you're happy. She didn't notice the smile that tugged at the corner of my mouth as I buried my face in the sports section. She was too busy texting, probably letting Alex know the coast was clear for Christmas dinner. What Lisa didn't know was that I'd already made my own plans. That evening, after Lisa went to bed, I did some social media detective work. It took me about 20 minutes to find Sophie Chen, Alex's fiancée. She was a marketing director at a pharmaceutical company, attractive, well-educated, and based on her posts, completely unaware that her future husband spent most of his free time texting his ex-girlfriend. I crafted a carefully worded message. Hi Sophie, I'm Michael, married to Lisa Patterson. Alex has been invited to join our family for Christmas dinner, and I'd love if you could join us as his partner. I think it would mean a lot to have both of you there. Her response came back within an hour. Hi Michael. I didn't know Alex was going to a Christmas dinner. I'd love to join. That's so thoughtful of you to include me. Could you send me the address and time? I provided the details, and then I sat back in my home office chair, staring at the computer screen. What I was about to do would either fix my marriage or destroy it completely. But I was tired of being the understanding husband, the one who was supposed to be mature about his wife's inappropriate friendship. If Lisa wanted Alex at our family Christmas dinner, then she was going to get exactly what she asked for. The next few days passed in a blur of holiday preparations. Lisa was in an unusually good mood, humming Christmas carols as she cleaned the house and planned the menu. She'd taken 2 personal days off work to get everything perfect, and I watched her fuss over details with an intensity that seemed excessive for a family dinner. Should I make Alex's favorite stuffing? She asked on December 23rd, standing in the middle of our kitchen with her hands on her hips. You know, the one with cranberries and walnuts? I didn't know you knew his favorite stuffing, I replied, not looking up from the stack of papers I was grading at the kitchen table. We've talked about it before. He mentioned how much he loved his grandmother's recipe. Of course they had. They'd probably talked about everything. His childhood memories, his favorite foods, his hopes and dreams. Meanwhile, I couldn't remember the last time Lisa and I had a conversation that lasted longer than 5 minutes without her phone buzzing with a text from Alex. Make whatever you want, I said. I'm sure our guests will appreciate the effort. The plural wasn't lost on her. She paused in her ingredient gathering and looked at me with a slight frown. Guests? It's just Alex. Right, I said, returning to my papers. Just Alex. Christmas Eve arrived with a light dusting of snow that made our suburban neighborhood look like a postcard. Lisa spent the morning cooking and decorating, transforming our dining room into something that belonged in a magazine. She'd bought new cloth napkins, polished the good silverware, and arranged centerpieces with an attention to detail that made me wonder when she'd last put this much effort into anything for just the two of us. My parents called to confirm they'd be there by 2 o'clock, and Lisa's parents were driving up from New York City. My brother Tom and his wife Janet were bringing their 2 kids, and Lisa's sister Michelle was coming with her boyfriend. It would be a full house, exactly the kind of family gathering that should have been about celebrating together, not showcasing inappropriate friendships. What time did you tell Alex to come? I asked as Lisa arranged place cards around the table. 4 o'clock. I thought it would be nice for him to arrive after the family gets settled, like a grand entrance. Of course. Perfect, I said. That should work out perfectly. Lisa shot me a look. You're being awfully agreeable about this. I told you I'd be mature about it. I meant it. What I didn't tell her was that I'd confirmed with Sophie that 4 o'clock worked for her schedule too. She'd seemed genuinely excited about meeting Lisa and spending Christmas with Alex's friends. In her last message, she'd written, I've been wanting to meet the people who are important to Alex. This will be perfect. Important to Alex. If only she knew. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold. Lisa was up before 6, putting the turkey in the oven and starting on side dishes. I made coffee and tried to stay out of her way, but I could feel the nervous energy radiating from her. She kept checking her phone, presumably for messages from Alex confirming he was still coming. Everything okay? I asked as she checked her phone for the 5th time in 10 minutes. Fine, just making sure the timing works out. I'm sure it will. By noon, the house smelled incredible. Lisa had outdone herself with the cooking, and as family members began arriving, the compliments flowed freely. My parents brought wine and stories about their cruise to the Caribbean. Lisa's parents arrived with expensive gifts and her mother's usual subtle criticisms about our home decor. Tom and Janet's kids immediately claimed the living room for video games, and Michelle's boyfriend proved to be surprisingly good company. It was shaping up to be a perfect family Christmas, almost. At 3:30, Lisa disappeared upstairs to change clothes and fix her makeup. She came back down wearing a red dress I'd never seen before, something that hugged her curves and made her look stunning. She'd curled her hair and put on the diamond earrings I'd given her for our anniversary. You look beautiful, I said, and I meant it. She smiled, but it was distracted, nervous. Thank you. At exactly 4 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Lisa practically sprinted to answer it, smoothing her dress as she went. I followed at a more leisurely pace, my heart pounding with anticipation. Alex! Lisa's voice was bright with genuine happiness as she opened the door. I'm so glad you could make it. Alex Morrison stood on our front porch, holding a bottle of what was probably very expensive wine. He was tall, well-dressed in a cashmere sweater and perfectly tailored slacks, and handsome in that effortless way that comes with good genetics and better bank accounts. When Lisa hugged him, I noticed how her arms lingered around his shoulders, how she breathed in deeply like she was memorizing his cologne. Thanks for having me, Alex said as he stepped inside, handing her the wine. This is really nice of you, and Michael. That's when I stepped up behind Lisa with my biggest smile. Alex, great to see you, man. I shook his hand firmly. Oh, and your fiancée should be here any minute. The wine bottle nearly slipped from Lisa's hands. Alex's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, surprise, and what might have been panic. What? He said, looking between Lisa and me. Lisa's face had gone pale beneath her carefully applied makeup. What do you mean? I invited Sophie, I said cheerfully. I thought she should join us as Alex's partner. I mean, it's Christmas, right? The more the merrier. You invited Sophie? Alex's voice cracked slightly on her name. Of course. When Lisa told me you were coming, I thought it would be rude not to include your fiancé. She seemed really excited about it when I messaged her. Lisa was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. You messaged her? Just to invite her. I figured you'd forgotten to mention her when you were planning the dinner. Easy mistake. Before anyone could respond, the doorbell rang again. This time, I was the one who rushed to answer it. Sophie Chen stood on our porch, looking absolutely radiant. She was petite and elegant, wearing a navy blue dress and a warm smile. She carried a beautifully wrapped gift and a bottle of champagne. Hi, I'm Sophie, she said as I opened the door wider. You must be Michael. Thank you so much for including me. Sophie, please, come in. We're so happy you could make it. As Sophie stepped inside, she immediately spotted Alex standing frozen in our foyer. Her smile brightened even more. Baby, what's going on? I thought you were just visiting friends. Alex opened and closed his mouth like a fish out of water. Sophie, I didn't know you were coming. Michael invited me, Sophie said, turning to me with genuine warmth. Wasn't that thoughtful? He said you were having Christmas dinner with Lisa and her family. Now Sophie turned to Lisa, who was standing statue still beside Alex. You must be Lisa. I've heard so much about you. Lisa managed a smile that looked like it physically hurt. Nice to meet you. The silence stretched uncomfortably until my mother appeared from the living room, drawn by the voices. Oh, more guests. How wonderful. Mom had clearly been sampling the wine. She was in full hostess mode, beaming at Sophie. I'm Michael's mother, Patricia, Sophie Chen. I'm Alex's fiancée. Fiancée? Mom clapped her hands together. How exciting. Lisa, you didn't mention Alex was engaged. All eyes turned to Lisa, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. It must have slipped my mind. Slipped your mind? Sophie's voice carried a note of surprise. Really? Because Alex talks about you all the time. I feel like I know you already. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Lisa shot me a look that could have melted steel, but I just smiled and gestured toward the living room. Why don't we all join the family? Dinner should be ready soon. Getting everyone seated around our extended dining room table was like orchestrating a diplomatic summit in a war zone. Lisa had clearly planned for Alex to sit beside her, but with Sophie's unexpected arrival, the seating arrangement became a delicate negotiation. Sophie naturally assumed she'd sit next to Alex, which meant Lisa ended up across from them, rather than beside her best friend. I took the seat directly across from Lisa, giving me a perfect view of her increasingly strained expressions. The rest of the family filled in around us, my parents, Lisa's parents, Tom and Janet with their kids at the smaller table nearby, and Michelle with her boyfriend. Everyone was chatting and passing dishes, creating the kind of warm family chaos that normally made holidays special, except for the tension radiating from our end of the table like heat from a furnace. So Sophie, Lisa's mother Joyce said as she passed the mashed potatoes, how did you and Alex meet? Sophie smiled as she helped herself to vegetables. Through work, actually. Alex's company was developing an app for pharmaceutical sales teams, and I was the liaison for my company. We had about 6 months of meetings before he finally asked me out. How romantic, Joyce said. Then, with the subtle cruelty that mothers-in-law have perfected over generations, she added, Lisa never mentioned you were engaged, Alex. Alex looked like he was choking on his wine. Well, it's still pretty new. How new? This came from my father, who had the blunt curiosity of a retired police officer. 6 months, Sophie said proudly, holding up her left hand to show off a diamond ring that probably cost more than my annual salary. We're planning a spring wedding. Lisa's fork clattered against her plate. Spring weddings are lovely. Yes, we're thinking May. Alex wants something small and intimate, but I'd love for him to include all his close friends. Sophie looked directly at Lisa. I hope you'll be there. That's very kind. Sophie tilted her head slightly, studying Lisa with the kind of attention that made me think she was sharper than Alex probably realized. You know, it's funny. Alex talks about you so much, but he never mentioned that you two used to date. The entire table went quiet. Even the kids at the nearby table seemed to sense the shift in atmosphere and lowered their voices. You dated. This came from Lisa's father, Frank, who was looking between Alex and Lisa with growing understanding. Lisa's face flushed red. We dated in college. It was a long time ago. College sweethearts, Sophie said, and there was something in her tone that wasn't quite as friendly as before. How nice that you stayed close. They're very close, I said helpfully. They text every day. Every day. Sophie looked at Alex with raised eyebrows. Alex was sweating now, despite the air conditioning. We're just friends. Good friends. Good friends, Sophie repeated slowly. That's interesting, because Alex never mentioned texting you daily. Lisa jumped in quickly. It's not daily. Michael's exaggerating. Am I? I pulled out my phone and opened Lisa's text history, which I'd screenshotted that morning. Let's see. Yesterday you sent Alex 12 messages. Tuesday was 15. Monday was, Michael. Lisa's voice was sharp with panic, but Sophie was already leaning forward with interest. 12 messages. About what? The silence stretched until Tom, bless him, tried to change the subject. Hey, did everyone try the stuffing? Lisa made Alex's favorite. If Tom had thrown a grenade onto the table, it couldn't have been more explosive. Alex's favorite? Sophie's voice was dangerously quiet. Lisa looked like she wanted to murder my brother. He mentioned liking cranberries. When did he mention that? I don't remember exactly. Because, Sophie continued, her voice getting colder, Alex is allergic to cranberries. He breaks out in hives. Lisa's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Alex looked like he was about to throw up. Actually, Sophie said, reaching into her purse, this is really interesting timing. Alex, remember those texts you showed me last week? The ones from your friend that you said were just friendly check-ins? She pulled out her phone and began scrolling. Here we go. I miss you. Can't wait to see you. Wish you were here instead of at that boring conference. She looked up at the table with a smile that could cut glass. Those were from you, weren't they, Lisa? Lisa's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor, red wine spreading across the hardwood like blood. The sound seemed to break whatever spell had been holding the room in suspended animation. Those texts were taken out of context, Lisa said, but her voice was shaking. Were they? Sophie's composure was impressive. She wasn't shouting or crying. She was dissecting the situation with surgical precision. Because I have more. Should I read the one where you told him you dreamed about him? Or the one where you said you wished things had been different between you? Lisa's father, Frank, set down his fork with a sharp clink. What exactly is going on here? I decided it was time to provide some clarity. Lisa insisted on inviting Alex to our family Christmas dinner. When I suggested including his fiancée, she seemed resistant to the idea. Resistant? Lisa's mother, Joyce, was looking at her daughter with growing alarm. Lisa, what is this about? It's about nothing. Lisa's voice cracked as she stood up abruptly. Alex is my friend. We're allowed to be friends. Friends don't send daily love messages, Sophie said, standing as well. Friends don't make their husband uncomfortable with constant texting and secret meetings. They weren't secret. Then why didn't Alex tell me about them? Sophie turned to Alex, who was still sitting frozen in his chair. Why didn't you tell me you were coming to Christmas dinner with your ex-girlfriend and her family? Alex finally found his voice. Sophie, please, this isn't what it looks like. Really? Because it looks like you've been having an emotional affair with a married woman while planning our wedding. The words hung in the air like a bomb that had just detonated. Lisa's mother gasped audibly. My parents exchanged the kind of look that spoke volumes. Tom and Janet were trying to shield their kids from the adult drama unfolding at the dinner table. It's not an affair, Alex said weakly. We didn't. You didn't what? Sophie's voice was rising now. You didn't lie to me about spending time with her. You didn't hide your daily conversations. You didn't come to her family Christmas dinner without mentioning you had a fiancé. Lisa was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. You don't understand. Alex and I have history. We have a connection. You have a connection, Sophie repeated. And what about your husband? What about me? What about the people who actually committed to building lives with you? That's when Lisa made the mistake that sealed her fate. Michael doesn't understand what Alex and I have. He's never understood. The room went dead silent. Even the kids stopped talking. Every eye in the room turned to me, waiting to see how I'd respond to my wife publicly dismissing our marriage in favor of her connection with another man. I stood up slowly, folding my napkin and placing it beside my plate with deliberate care. You're absolutely right, Lisa. I don't understand. I don't understand how someone can make vows to love and honor their spouse while maintaining an inappropriate emotional relationship with an ex-boyfriend. I don't understand how someone can invite that ex-boyfriend to their family Christmas dinner and expect their husband to smile and play along. And I especially don't understand how someone can stand in front of their entire family and announce that their husband doesn't understand what they have with someone else. Lisa was sobbing now, but I wasn't finished. But here's what I do understand. Sophie deserves better than a fiancé who lies to her about his relationships with other women. And I deserve better than a wife who prioritizes her ex-boyfriend over her marriage. Sophie was gathering her purse and coat. Alex, I'm leaving. Don't call me, don't text me, and don't come to my apartment. We're done. Alex jumped up, panic finally breaking through his paralysis. Sophie, wait, please, let me explain. Explain what? That you've been emotionally cheating on me for months? That you brought me to Christmas dinner with your ex-girlfriend without bothering to mention that's what this was? That you've been lying to both of us this entire time? Alex followed Sophie toward the door, leaving Lisa standing alone beside the dinner table, crying in front of both our families. This is your fault, Lisa said, turning on me with sudden fury. You invited her to sabotage me. I invited her because Alex is engaged to her. Because when someone's partner is invited to a family dinner, it's normal to include both halves of the couple. Because I thought she had a right to know what kind of man she was planning to marry. Lisa's mother finally found her voice. Lisa Marie Patterson, what have you done? I haven't done anything wrong. Alex and I are friends. Friends don't destroy marriages, my mother said quietly. And they certainly don't do it at Christmas dinner. From the front hall, we could hear Sophie and Alex's voices rising in argument, followed by the sound of the front door slamming. A car engine started and drove away quickly. Sophie's, I assumed, since Alex's Tesla was still in our driveway. Alex reappeared in the dining room doorway, his face pale and his expensive sweater wrinkled from Sophie's attempts to push past him. She's gone, he said to Lisa. She won't even listen to me. This is all Michael's fault, Lisa said, pointing at me accusingly. He set this up. I set up Christmas dinner, I corrected. You set up everything else. The aftermath of Christmas dinner was swift and brutal. Lisa's parents left within an hour, her mother muttering about disgraceful behavior and what will people think. My parents stayed long enough to help clean up the broken wine glass and pack up the untouched food. But the festive atmosphere was completely destroyed. Tom and Janet gathered their kids and prepared to leave, but not before Tom pulled me aside. That was either the most brilliant thing you've ever done, or the most destructive, he said quietly. Maybe both, I admitted. Are you okay with that? I looked across the room where Lisa was sitting on the couch, still crying, while Alex sat helplessly beside her trying to figure out how to salvage his relationship with Sophie. Yeah, I said. I think I am. After everyone left, the house felt like a battlefield after the war had ended. Dishes sat abandoned on the table, the carefully planned meal mostly uneaten. Lisa had stopped crying, but was staring at her phone, probably hoping for a text from Alex that wasn't coming. Alex himself was pacing our living room, alternating between calling Sophie and texting her, getting no response to either. She blocked my number, he announced, to no one in particular. Can you blame her? I asked. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. You planned this. You knew exactly what would happen when you invited her. I invited your fiancé to Christmas dinner. If that caused problems, maybe you should examine why. Lisa finally looked up from her phone. Stop acting like you're innocent in this, Michael. You knew what you were doing. You're absolutely right. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was including Alex's partner in our family celebration, the way any reasonable person would. The fact that it exposed your inappropriate relationship isn't my fault, it's yours. We weren't having an affair. No, you were having something worse. An affair is about sex and passion and temporary insanity. What you were having was an emotional marriage with someone else, while expecting me to be okay with it. Alex stopped pacing. Look, man, I never meant for this to happen. Lisa and I, we just connected, you know. We have history. You have history, I agreed. And now you have consequences. Sophie's gone, Lisa's family is horrified, and my wife just announced in front of everyone that her husband doesn't understand what she has with another man. Lisa was crying again. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? She didn't have an answer for that. Alex gathered his coat and headed for the door. I need to go try to fix things with Sophie. Good luck with that, I said. I'm sure she'll be very understanding about the daily texting and secret emotional intimacy with your ex-girlfriend. After Alex left, Lisa and I sat in our destroyed dining room, surrounded by the remnants of what should have been a perfect Christmas dinner. I can't believe you did this, she said finally. I can't believe you made it necessary. What's that supposed to mean? It means that for months, I've been asking you to set appropriate boundaries with Alex. I've told you that the constant texting and private meetings were making me uncomfortable. I've tried to talk to you about how your relationship with him was affecting our marriage, and every time you dismissed my concerns and told me I was being insecure. You were being insecure. Was I? Because it seems like Sophie had the same concerns I did. It seems like your own family was shocked by what they saw tonight. It seems like the only people who thought your relationship with Alex was appropriate were you and Alex. Lisa was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was small and defeated. I never meant for it to go this far. How far did it go, Lisa? We didn't sleep together. But you wanted to. She didn't deny it, and he wanted to. Again, no denial. So you were both in love with each other while committed to other people, and you thought that was okay as long as you didn't actually have sex. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? She couldn't answer that either. I stood up and started clearing the table, stacking plates and gathering silverware with mechanical precision. The normalcy of the task felt surreal after everything that had happened. Where do we go from here? Lisa asked. I paused in my cleaning and looked at her. Really looked at her. She was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with 6 years ago. But she was also someone who had just publicly chosen another man over me. Someone who had been living a double emotional life for months. Someone who had tried to gaslight me into thinking my concerns about her inappropriate relationship were just jealousy and insecurity. I don't know, I said honestly, but I know where we don't go. We don't go back to pretending that what you and Alex had was normal friendship. We don't go back to me being the understanding husband who's supposed to smile and accept being second place in his own marriage. And we definitely don't go back to you dismissing my feelings while prioritizing his. Lisa was crying again, but this time it seemed different, less self-pity and more genuine remorse. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know you are, but sorry doesn't undo months of emotional betrayal. Sorry doesn't take back what you said in front of our families tonight. And sorry doesn't answer the fundamental question of whether you want to be married to me or whether you'd rather be with Alex. I want to be married to you. Do you? Because your actions for the past 6 months suggest otherwise. She didn't have an answer for that. I finished clearing the table in silence, loading the dishwasher and putting away leftovers that probably wouldn't get eaten. Lisa sat at the table watching me, occasionally wiping her eyes with a napkin. When I was done cleaning, I turned back to her one final time. Lisa, I love you. I've loved you for 6 years, and part of me will probably always love you. But I won't be married to someone who's in love with someone else, and I won't spend my life competing with a ghost from your past for my own wife's attention. What are you saying? I'm saying that you need to decide what you want. Really decide. Not what you think you should want, not what's convenient or safe or expected. What you actually want. I want our marriage to work. Then you need to cut all contact with Alex. No texts, no calls, no coffee dates, no checking in or staying friends. Complete and total separation. And you need to mean it, not just say it to placate me until things blow over. Lisa nodded eagerly. Yes, okay, I can do that. And you need to go to marriage counseling with me, real counseling, where we talk about why this happened and how to make sure it never happens again. Yes, absolutely. And you need to understand that trust, once broken, takes a long time to rebuild. You don't get to be upset with me for being suspicious or checking up on you. You don't get to be frustrated if I need reassurance or proof that you're keeping your promises. You broke this, which means you fix it. I understand. I looked at her for a long moment, this woman I'd loved and married and built a life with, who had just blown up our world for the sake of an emotional affair with her college boyfriend. I hope you do, I said, because this is your one chance to save our marriage. There won't be another. As I walked upstairs to our bedroom, I could hear Lisa crying at the dining room table. Part of me wanted to go back and comfort her, to tell her everything would be okay, to smooth over the crisis the way I'd smoothed over so many smaller conflicts in our marriage. But I didn't, because sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is let them face the full consequences of their choices. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is stop being understanding about things that should never be understood. The Christmas dinner that was supposed to showcase Lisa's inappropriate friendship had instead exposed it for what it really was. Alex had lost his fiancée, Lisa had lost her best friend, and possibly her marriage. Both families now knew the truth about what had been happening. It wasn't the Christmas dinner anyone had planned, but it was exactly the Christmas dinner that needed to happen. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling while Lisa cried herself to sleep beside me, I realized something important. I wasn't angry anymore. For months, I'd been carrying around this low-level fury about Alex and Lisa's relationship, this constant irritation at being made to feel like the jealous, insecure husband for having completely reasonable concerns about my wife's emotional affair. But now, with everything out in the open, with the truth finally exposed for everyone to see, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: peace. I had invited Sophie to Christmas dinner, not out of spite or revenge, but out of a simple belief that she deserved to know the truth about the man she was planning to marry. I had refused to enable Lisa's inappropriate relationship by pretending it was normal friendship. And in doing so, I had given everyone involved, Lisa, Alex, Sophie, and myself, the gift of clarity. Whether Lisa and I would be able to rebuild our marriage remained to be seen, but at least now we'd be working from a foundation of honesty, instead of the elaborate fiction that had been consuming our lives for months. Neither. The dinner table had indeed turned into a scene nobody in my family would ever forget. But sometimes the most memorable moments are the ones that finally force everyone to stop pretending and start dealing with reality. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's self-destructive choices, even when that someone is the person you love most in the world.